The second video on this second installment of the Holy Christian Church, Communion of Saints, the working of and organizing of the Holy Spirit. So third article, Luther's explanation that he gives credit to the Spirit for creating a community of believers. I want to address this thought with you today, have you talk about it. People may argue that there are hypocrites in the church. People who act like they love Jesus, but after church, they're mean and cruel to others. Because of this, they say they don't want to be a part of the church. Did you know, think of this, that Jesus taught that the devil would try to sabotage the church by making sure there'd be hypocrites in the church? So Jesus taught us this. Jesus said, look, the Holy Spirit is going to create this communion of saints, the community of the church, but the devil's going to try to sow seeds of wickedness there. And there will be people that pop up who maybe look like believers, talk like believers, but they don't act or truly believe. Jesus said that about the church. And Jesus didn't say, therefore, give up on the church. Don't have anything in part of it. Look at all the church as a hypocrite institution. So, just furthering ourselves along in that line of thought, why do you think there will be those in the church who don't really believe in Jesus, but act like they do? And after discussing why you think people claim to follow Jesus but don't, think about how Jesus still treated the church of his day, which is full of hypocrites. He even says in Matthew 23, speaking to the leaders of the church, the false leaders, he says again and again, you hypocrites. But did Jesus give up on the church? Even though there would be those from within the church who would even crucify him. Explain how the Holy Spirit can still be at work within the church, though it contains hypocrites. As you consider the nature of the church, what we would call the visible church, as opposed to the invisible, the one that's really made up of only believers. In this earth, we only see kind of the visible church made up of believers and hypocrites, non-believers. I'm going to read a few passages here. Again, think about how is it, do you think, that the Holy Spirit could still work through the church? And what are we to think about this church, even though there might be hypocrites, especially as we consider that the devil is behind that? Here are the passages. Jesus told them this parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. The owner's servants came to him and said, Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from? An enemy did this, he answered. Because he said, the enemies did this. So the servants asked, do you want us to go and pull up the weeds? No, he answered, because while you're pulling the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. So, what's the thought behind that? Jesus is saying, there's the church. The Holy Spirit, right, has the seeds of the gospel planted in hearts, and the good harvest begins to grow, the wheat begins to grow. Well, the devil came along, and he sowed weeds among that field within the church to try to sabotage the church and break up the church. And now the wheat, which looks just like the wheat, or the weeds look just like the wheat, grows up too. And the servants say, should we pluck it out? He says, no, because you might damage the wheat when you do it. And it's true. If we started looking for hypocrites among us, we can't read the heart. And if we started casting them out of the church, how many believers would be hurt by that? And so Jesus concludes the parable by saying, don't do that. And he says that in the end, the angels will come. He says, let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them up in bundles to be burned. Then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn. Matthew 13, 24 through 30. So that's Jesus' word, right? Again, talk about that question. Explain how the Holy Spirit can still be at work within the church, though it contains hypocrites. And we'll see you in our next video.